Good afternoon, Luc Julia.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to DI Summit. You are the co-creator of Siri and vice president of innovation at Samsung. And you wrote this book, AI Doesn't Exist. Can you tell us more about this provocative title?
Yeah, I wrote this book, there is no such thing as artificial intelligence because the artificial intelligence that we are talking about in the media is the one, currently in the media is the one, that doesn't exist. Is the one that, is scary for people, the one that maybe is a dream for some people, it doesn't exist. The AI that exists, the AI that I'm doing for the past 30 years, is pretty simple after all. It's something that is based on mathematics and statistics, and it's something that we are doing for the past 60 years actually, and it's just a tool. Okay, so this tool is going to help us to do things that we decide. We can use the tool in the wrong way, but we are still going to just build some tools that we have the full control of. So there is no reason to be scared, of AI, or there is no reason to think that AI is going to replace us or to do some things that, that much better than we do. Tools are always better than what we are doing, otherwise we won't create the tools, so we don't need the tools. So they are better at the tasks, but they are just tools.
And can you touch on the terminology, because you do not agree with the term artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so since I think I'm believing that it's tools that are enhancing us basically. That's why I prefer to call the AI augmented intelligence, because it's augmenting our intelligence, it's augmenting us basically. As any other tool, since the very beginning of humanity, anytime we create a tool, it's just for us to be better at something, or it's for us not to do a task that we don't want to do. So basically it's augmenting us. And in this case, since I wanted to keep the two letters, AI, I say that it's augmenting our intelligence.
Lately we hear a lot about the dangers of AI, and one of the reasons that you wrote this book, because you wanted to demystify and also to show maybe the benefits that will be brought by it.
So there might be some scary parts, but again, since there are tools, we decide how we want to use them, and if there are some scary things, it's because we want them to happen, right? So we are in control. We have to realize that, and we need to be very, very clear. But that said, obviously when people are creating technologies, when they are creating tools, at the beginning this is to help ourselves, right? So it can be helpful in many, many domains, it can be helpful everyday life, like in your home, objects can team up in order to do something for you. In medicine, it can be better DNA analysis and stuff like that. There is a lot of data everywhere, and those tools, they are about data statistics again, and so most likely we are going to have some very, very beneficial artificial intelligence that are going to help us in whatever domain we are going to decide to create those AIs.
You were solicited by President Macron in his effort to promote AI and digitalization. Can you tell us more about it?
So the idea, the French government, is pushing to have a more dynamic economy, and for the past 7 years, actually a little bit before Macron, they are pushing what is called the French Tech, right? And the French Tech is creating a lot of startups, and promoting those young people to go in the right field of education in order to take advantage of what we are good at, not only in France but in all Europe, which is those hard science like mathematics, right? So we are seeing a lot of efforts, pushing more people doing mathematics and stuff like that in order to go into security, go into AI, because we are very, very good at that.
And there is an idea or preconceived idea that Europe is way behind United States and China in terms of AI race. Do you agree with it, firstly? And what could be European contribution?
So I don't agree with it, and I think that the contribution is actually what happened last year, for instance, with GDPR. Because we understand the technology and the danger of technology, we're also going to push the regulation. And when you look at the regulation, for instance, to talk about GDPR, and we're looking at what is happening right now in the States, in California in 2020, in January 2020, they are going to have a law that looks a lot like GDPR, and that is basically copying us, right? So we were the leader in this thing. In addition to that, because of the brains that I was talking about before, the fact that we are good in Europe, in general, in mathematics and those hard science, I think that we are not that far. I mean, there are some regulation, again, that are different in China, in Europe, and so on, but we have a lot of the brain power in order to develop the right algorithm and the right systems that are going to be as good as the Chinese or the US.
This year edition is centered around human and ethics. In your opinion, what is the place of ethics in AI, and how can AI contribute to better gender racial equality?
So for me, ethics is also very well related to privacy, like what we are talking about, with GDPR. So GDPR came, alive because of big data, basically, and big data is because of AI. So I mean, somehow AI was the creation. I mean, it did create somehow, GDPR. So there is a contribution there. But now, using AI in order to prevent any kind of racism, sexism, and all those things, it's also possible. But because of the big data that we are talking about, by definition, it's very easy to have data bias, in those when you create a model, when you select something. And so we being the scientists, but also the public, we need to ask for a more ethical, way to create those systems. And to do that, we need to understand first that there is potential bias, in the data, and so we need to ask for those data scientists, those people creating systems, to be sure that they're not going to use something against a certain part of the society.
Do you agree with the idea that Europe is way behind USA and China in terms of AI race? And if not, how can Europe contribute to AI development?
I mean, Europe is very good at mathematics, at art sciences. And so I believe that we can contribute in those art sciences, and we saw with the different initiatives, all around Europe that we can really create some very interesting new systems that are not created anywhere else in the world. So that's the point. The other point is with GDPR, we definitely, also we did show the way to the world in terms of regulation. And that's why, California is, for instance, going to have a law that is going to be even stronger than GDPR.
And what about the place of ethics in AI? And how can AI contribute to better gender, racial equality, and social justice?
Yeah. So AI is all about big data, right? So, and by definition, when you create a model, AI model, in order to create a system, you have to take a lot of data in order to create the system. It's easy, unfortunately, to have a bias in the data that you are going to take. So we need to create some kind of a law or some kind of regulation, to be sure that when you create something, you are going to use the right data. It's complicated to do that, but we as scientists, when we create systems, we are trying to use the right data because we want to have the right systems. But sometimes we are biased, ourselves. So it's a very complicated system, a very complicated issue. But I mean, I think that definitely AI can do something about that. In addition to that, there are some issues that we have today in the world, like global warming and stuff like that. I think that AI can contribute also there because it's all about data. All those things, they are about data. A lot of data that we did collect in the past few, tens of years, and so we can most likely solve some of the issues, or at least prove that, for instance, there is an issue with the climate change with AI. So AI can be a very good tool again here to help us to prove that something is going wrong.
In your book, you mentioned that one of the ways to eliminate bias in AI would be to open it to other disciplines and to make it multidisciplinary.
Yeah. That's complicated. So, I mean, that's for sure, it's much less comfortable to go somewhere where we don't know. But the reality is that if we want to have something that is going to be much more universal, it has to be open to a lot of different domains. And so, yes, I believe that somewhere a better AI, something that will be closer maybe that what we are dreaming about, will be to have a lot of different disciplines that are going to work together in order to create something that is, much stronger. But it's very, very complicated because it's complicated for people to collaborate when they don't talk the same language, basically. And it's difficult also to just, be specialists in a lot of different domains.
And my last question will be about environment, because it's a hot topic and it's very hot here, as we can see. The younger generation, they will be surrounded by AI, but they're also very much climate aware, and they worry a lot about this climate change. You mentioned also that the development of AI and these big data centers are consuming a huge amount of energy, and this is of course a problem, and that we also have to make an effort to develop the so-called small data. So can you touch on this, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that today we know that because we concentrate all the data in the data center in order to compute those models that we need to create those statistical models, it needs a lot of data. And so by needing a lot of data, this is the big data, it needs a lot of power to compute that, and it requires a lot of energy. The good news is that 60% of the energy that is required there is just to cool. So it means that if we explode the compute and do something at the edge, maybe we'll be able to save already 60% right there. But doing something at the edge is complicated as well, because this is where small data is going to be now at the edge, and because we are using statistical model, when you don't have a lot of samples, by definition the models are not going to be good. So people are working on something like working on small data in order to have something happening on edge in terms of compute, and just bringing back some results in order to have less compute centralized. So there is a lot of fields to study there. We need to be very careful, because with the way we are doing things today, if we had to create every system for every domain possible, for what our brain is doing, we go directly into the wall.
Thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you.